Hello, and welcome back to the Crystal Clarity Podcast. My name is Sarah Thomas, and I will be your host for episode 22, where we get to break into your best, cool next Saturday creative project, which is how to build a crystal grid that will protect your home. And so we're breaking into this cool intersection between shamanic technologies and art, which is so fun. And we're moving into something where we're going to take grid work, this application of stone medicine that we've been talking about, this vibrational application of stone medicine, where what we do with the stones affects the whole space. That's the vibrational aspect or application of stone medicine, where we don't just stuff the stone in our bra and we don't just put the stone on a shelf. We apply it vibrationally by creating something in the space or environment that affects the whole space or environment. So it goes beyond elixirs, it goes beyond on the body treatments, and we land in the grid. So in this episode, I want to talk to you about how to build a protection grid for your home or any space. It can be a healing clinic, it can be one room of your home. You can create this and adapt it to anything that you want to protect. But if you do ceremonies or healing events or meditations, it's so important to protect the space first. If you do these kind of events in your home, if you have a healing clinic, if you have a child that's really sensitive or getting nightmares or really affected by something in the environment, pets that are sensitive, any chaotic energy around your home, like a hospital can have chaotic energy, a graveyard can have chaotic energy, a highway can have chaotic energy, any kind of weather that you feel like is unstable or chaotic, you're creating a vibrational shell around your space where the crystals hold your intention of protecting your space. And you get to have this. You get to be like, I have this healthy individuation. I'm creating a boundary with love, and I want to contain the energy that I'm cultivating in this space. And I claim that I want to live in this kind of space. So, this is about choice, and this is about, it's not about feeling victimized to all of the things that are going on, which is easy to with the crazy stuff in this world is just wild right now. I cannot believe the incredible crazy stuff that is being put into our environment from the electromagnetic spectrum beyond into the quantum. It is enough to make us feel out of control. The way that weather's being manipulated. And this is a chance for us to stand up and say, no, this is my home. This is my space. I claim love here. I claim, community here. I claim safety here. So, I'm going to give you the framework, like the easiest way to do this. And so I want you to understand the framework so you can kind of choose your own creative ways to do it. So I'm going to touch some basics on how to create a protection grid. Like this is kindergarten of protection grid, but it really is enough for you to go out and do this on some Saturday coming up and have a real protection grid. I've been doing this for a long time. I have stories. You're going to love this. When you get this set up, you're going to love this. So when we think about protection, there's different ways to think about protection. We have these different actions that we take. We can close and seal, and I'm twisting my hand like I'm closing a portal here. You can close and seal. You can cloak or make invisible something to protect it. So that's kind of like working with light and shifting light. You can project a field where you project some kind of energy or field that is something that you can project your aura, project your blood enough that nothing can get into that. So that's a way of like strengthening from the center out, and that's a way of protecting. There's different ways to think about it, and one way that's really great to just start with is the way of just guardianship, just guarding. That's a new way to think, or not a new way, that's like the number one way to think about it. Like, what are we doing to guard the space? And when we just guard a space, we want to think about the first thing that we want to think about just guarding. We're not worrying about light and shift and all this stuff. We're just guarding the space. We're just putting up this boundary. Now, that's the first thing that you want to think about when you're just guarding a space, when you're just taking this like basic way into protection. You want to think about guarding the space and you want to think about the boundaries. Because if you're going to guard a space, the first thing that you have to define is the boundaries of the space. And think about, it might be easy for you to define the boundaries of the space of your yard if you know exactly where your property lines are. It might be easy for you to define the boundaries of your office if you know where the corners of your office are. But sometimes people do events or meditations or healing ceremonies or educational stuff outside, right? And they really want to protect that space and they don't know exactly where the boundaries are. The first thing that you have to do is define the boundaries. So just find like that tree to that rock to this tree to that. You have to know those boundaries in order to create a good guardian protection grid. So the first thing that I want you to think about is boundaries when you do this. Where are the boundaries of your space? And get really clear about that. Don't go into it like, I kind of know, but I kind of don't know. Get really clear about that. You can use the property lines of your home or yard. You can use the blueprint of your house or, the walls of your house. You can use the basics. You can also define the boundaries of your space by tuning into nature a little bit more and being like, I know this is the property line, but actually this boulder here feels like a guardian energy. I'm going to use that. Or I know this is the property line or the edge of the yard, but this great tree here has this power and I'm going to work with that. So, or a river or something. You can use the natural energy around you to help you create the boundaries, okay? Once you feel like you understand and feel clear about the boundaries of the space, think about the points on that grid, okay? So this is simple. If it was a square, the points on the grid are the corners. Those are the articulations, right? And if it's a triangle, the points on that will be at the corners too. You want to look at the articulations. It's just like a joint, like an elbow joint. That's an articulation. So you find those articulations because what happens, and I'm shifting my elbow up and down, showing people, but what happens with an articulation is that in order for there to make the turn, there's a little bit of flexibility there. Like the body has to create a little bit of flexibility there, which can create an opening or a hole. So you always want to guard articulations. Like in Chinese medicine, sometimes wind or energy or climatic factors or supernatural stuff will come in through the hips or joints because it wants to come in through the articulations because the articulations are always gates. There's flexibility there like a doorway. So look for the articulations along the boundary that you define. And it's okay if there's 5 articulations, like it looks kind of like a pentagon, or there's 6 articulations, but those little gates that you see in the line, which could be a corner or something, that's an articulation, and you want to make sure that you put a point on the grid at that space because you really want to enforce that that opening is not available. We're guarding that opening, okay? Once you find the articulations on the grid and place a point there, you can do a little map of this on a piece of paper first if you want and draw a little point, like a little dot. Then you can go and you have those, and that's enough to put the points on the grid at the articulations. And you can also add some more points on the grid. You can say, I want to put 2 more points on the grid along this north line. I want to put 2 more points on the grid along the south line. You can space them out evenly. You can do points along the perimeter any way that you want. My suggestion is to hold symmetry in mind when you do this. And if you have a 60-foot north line over here and a 60-foot south line over here, I wouldn't put 4 lines, 4 points on the north line and just 2 points on the south line. I like to create symmetry because symmetry and patterns are what help this grid connect into the metaphysical or all the layers of energy. And that's what we're doing, right? We're connecting into this multidimensional tapestry of energy around us. That's what vibrational medicine is. That's what this vibrational application is. It's not like we are putting giant boulders along the whole property line of our yard, right, to block, just physically block an electromagnetic spectrum energy. No, we're working with energy, frequency, and vibration. And through our intention and our process with these spiritual allies, these rocks, which all matter has a spirit. There's a spirit in there. The relationship that we have with them plus our intention can create a vibrational energetic field. And remember that when you make a grid, it penetrates through dimensions. It goes out of this dimension and it's felt and seen in other dimensions. A grid is like a it's like a passport to other dimensions, right? That's why sacred geometry and geometries are the ways things come into form. So, after you define your articulations, and then you can add a couple more points on the grid if you would like, and then just keep in mind symmetry. And now at each of these points, you're going to place a stone. And the bigger the stone, the better, because guardian stones really like stability. They don't want to feel like they have to have power, right? And all power comes from stability. They have to feel like they're not going to be blown over in a storm, or you don't want to put a little chip of mica in a tree as your guardian grid, right? You want to get as big stones as you can, and I know that there's limitations with that depending on the size that you choose, but stones that feel heavy and dense and stable make really great guardian stones. I mean, stones are living things. You know, if you take a stone that's all light and airy and sweet, like this little baby apophyllite that's just a little tip, and I'm like, go be my guardian stone for my whole yard, it's going to be like, whoa, that's a lot for me. So get something big and heavy and stable. Remember that the cubic crystal structure is brings a lot of stability. It's great for guardian stones. The cubic crystal structure makes up garnet, it makes up pyrite, and that's just one way to kind of hold in what are the best stones for these grids. Crystal structure is just one thing to think about. So the cubic crystal structure brings a lot of stability, but I really want you to think about light too. And what really helps a guardian stone feel good is when it has a lot of opacity, like it blocks light. So we want to move towards opaque stones and move away from transparent stones. Think about stones that are just, I'm holding up just a dense, dark, black tourmaline here. Look how much opacity this has. It's like light is not shining through this, okay? Things that have a lot of opacity stop energy. The energy, the vibrational energy cannot pass through the opacity. So that's how we work with energetic signature, with light, with creating good guardian stones. There has to be a lot of opacity. It's like when you have transparency, like a clear crystal, right? It means that the energy is just going to pass through the transparency. You can see light through it. So opacity is one thing to think about when you're finding these guardian stones. That doesn't mean you can't use some clear quartz out there, some smoky quartz, or something that has some clarity and transparency. I'm just lining up some of these frameworks for you on how to find really stable, strong guardian stones, and they don't all have to come into play, okay? I just want you to understand the framework behind it. For instance, smoky quartz is the darkest of the quartz types. So it's used for protection grids a lot, just because it's the darkest type. Now yours might have some transparency to it if you have smoky quartz, but see where we're going with that? Like there's a darkness to smoky quartz, so it's the most used for protection grids and actually the most grounding for the energy of the protection grid, which is really helpful for chaotic, stirring, wild, chaotic energy. And okay, so we're thinking about opacity, we're thinking about the cubic crystal structure for stability, and I want you to think a little bit too about density, and that means heaviness. Like hematite has a great density to it, so it's quite heavy. That's something else that will lead to stability for your protection grid. Okay, so we have opacity, we have that cubic crystal structure to think of when we're picking stones for guardian stones, and we also just want to think about density. Density creates heavy stones, so if you look at specific gravity of a stone, the higher the specific gravity means the more dense it'll be, which means the more heavy it will be. So hematite is known as a very heavy stone. And heaviness and density give a guardian stone a sense of stability too, which will give it a sense of power, which you really do need a sense of power in these stones. The other thing that I want to say briefly is that look at color a little bit in terms of black stones are really great for this because they absorb light, they absorb the whole light spectrum. So there's a way that they're like drawing in this detrimental energy and protecting you by absorbing light or not just detrimental energy, but all of the energies that are around, right? It can absorb all of the energies, including the detrimental ones. Like white is going to be something that reflects energy and reflects all the wavelengths of light. So that can be good too. But black stones have this ability to really not just reflect the light, but also like eat and absorb and eat that denser energy. It's like if you were a guardian, would you want to just be able to reflect if you were standing at a gate, or would you want to be able to take some of that stuff and gnaw it up too, and just be like, I can also eat this energy while I'm getting, while I'm protecting, while I'm guarding, I'm also kind of eating this density. Black stones are really powerful in protection grids. White stones are too. So I just want you to be like, okay, that's the difference with the light, the white and the black. Maybe the most important thing is getting stones from the environment that you're in. If you have some quartz in your yard, if you have stones around, if you have river rocks near you, dark river rocks, black river rocks, if you have any stones in your natural environment that have opacity to them, basalt stones, these are great to just work with stones from the natural environment. Sometimes you'll even go to the nearest creek to get black stones from that creek. But remember, not just little small pebbles that'll blow away, but some hefty black stones. And if you ever get something from a creek, you really have to ask and really be honest with yourself what you're hearing, because that's a whole situation, that creek. But sometimes these stones will offer themselves to come out and work with you, especially if it's a local situation, like it's part of the local landscape. And stones are not separate from us, they're not in judgment of us. We're part of it. We're one with them, and they have more of that consciousness to them than even we do. So they're not like mad at you, but just ask, what is your purpose? Can you come home with me and be a part of like this greater natural landscape as a protection grid? And if you get a yes, it's a yes. If you get a I don't really know, it's a no. It has to be a clear yes to get a yes. And then leave some offerings there. And that is one way to get darker local stones for your grid, or any stones that feel like they're really calling you for your grid. But one of the ways to really just be like, how do I use all of the beneficial energy and all this love and natural chi and Sami? Sami is like the word for all this beautiful energy in nature to really be in this grid. So this is like of love and in harmony with the natural world. Part of doing that is working with stones from the environment and having a relationship with them. And maybe it takes you some time to gather them or find them on the property, but those would be the stones that would be awesome to use for that reason, because there's like a natural coherence. But it doesn't mean that you have to do that, okay? I want to give you guys, make sure that you're like, okay, I feel this like edges that Sarah's creating, but none of it is like black or white, right or wrong. It's just a way to think about going about this that makes sense with the natural world. If light can't penetrate something, that opacity means something vibrationally, right? And the function of something follows its form. So form is always telling us something about what it's going to be able to do vibrationally. So one other thing about guardian stones is they will really work for you. Place them at the articulations, the points that you've created on the grid, okay? Place them at the points that you've created on the grid, and explain to them that they are going to be the protection stones and the guardian stones. Thank them profusely for being guardian stones, and they're going to be happy. Like, this is what they came to do. And in a sense, it's like giving you your purpose and destiny in a job or something. It's like they're going to be happy. Tell them that they're working with the rest of the greater grid, right? So you're here. Thank you so much. Your other ones are all around you. Link them up through your consciousness, your intention, your communication with them, and then they all create this one protection grid that you have that is protecting the space. When you start it up, you'll start to feel changes. You also might want to think about giving the stones in the grid offerings, like spraying a little rose spray on them, or dropping them a little hello sometimes, or giving them a little thank you, or sprinkling some flowers or rose petals on them, because you will see that these stones will actually protect you vibrationally, and they're out there working. You'll see them changed and moved if something weird has come up. Not always, but I mean, it will be diagnostic back to you They're actually working for you, and you won't know that until you actually experience it. But then you'll know, and then you'll have faith in it. So get out there on the next Saturday or whatever day that you're available and create yourself a protection grid with love, with the realization that it's only boundaries that can actually allow us to then experience Tantra and union. We have to first start with individuation. We have to first start with a clear sense of self and clear intentions and clear container for what we want to create. So make that for your family. Think about stones with a cubic crystal structure. Think about black and dark stones. Think about stones in the natural environment. Think about stones with some density to them. And think about, a guardian stone wants to feel hefty and strong. It wants to feel stable. So don't put it on a side of a mountain where it's just going to roll down the mountain or something. Give it that stability. That's where it's going to get its power. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to keep these to 10 minutes. Build your grid. Make a grid. Find the articulations. Protect your space. We've been doing this for millions and billions of years in this universe, so you can do it too. I'm going to leave you with that because I'm trying to do the shorter episodes, and those are the basics of creating a protection grid. I will see you in episode 20.